Hey there, all you fellow gamers and meme creators. Michael Meme King back again for another video on the king of historical accuracy. We're reacting to another video because I don't know why are we doing this again? I don't know. Onto the video. So the last time we did this was a while ago, actually. How long has it been? I want to say a month, but um, yeah, I don't know. Anyways, the last time we did this, we reacted to, I don't even remember, so I'm not even gonna try. But anyways, Man vs. History has blessed the YouTube community with another video, and I am the, what am I? I don't know. I'm the fortunate soul to react to it. Does this make any sense? I don't know. I'm just rambling on for no reason at this point. I'm just doing it for views. Anyways, we are reacting to how to create a historical accurate soldier in Red Dead Online. As you guys should know by this point, none of these videos that I react to belong to me unless I'm reacting to one of my own videos, which why would I do that? That really, really doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I don't own this. This doesn't belong to me in any way possible. And for those of you that think these videos belong to me, go to school. Also, like and subscribe, or I will come to your house. I will jump out of your closet and scream at you. Hang on, can you guys even hear this? Oh god, I probably screwed all this up. Oh no, oh no, it's not gonna be a good video. Come on, come on, work, work, work. Oh.
What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about soldiers in the American West, which you can use to create a historically accurate soldier character, Red Dead Online. What we often refer to as the American Indian Wars, or simply the Indian Wars, were a protracted series of conflicts between Native Americans and European settlers, pioneers, and eventually the U.S. Army over North American land and natural resources. While these conflicts began as early as the 1600s, nowadays the term primarily refers to the peak years of warfare on the Western Plains, from the end of the Civil War in 1865 to the closing of the West following the Wounded Knee Massacre in 1890. It's this 25-year period that has been subsequently immortalized in books and films, when many of the most famous clashes occurred, involving such legendary Western figures as Red Cloud, Sitting Bull, Crazy Horse, Custer, and more. As such, we'll be modeling our...
Also, I feel like I have to explain something. Or not really explain, just kind of state a kind of fact. In Red Dead Redemption 2, in Chapter 6, the whole, like, Indian missions, I hate those missions. Because I just feel like it's a waste of time. You do missions, and it really feels like you're doing them for no exact reason. It just feels like they're doing it to kind of add stuff, or not even add stuff, just I don't know. I really just hate the the Indian missions. I really do. Because it feels like they're just there for no reason by this point. By this point it feels like they just are there for a reason that can't be explained. I just don't like it. I don't like those missions. I feel like they're a waste of time, they're a waste of everyone's time, and nobody likes them. And if you do like them, then you like them. It doesn't harm me in any way, but I don't like them. I don't like them. I hate them, and I just hate them.
are historically accurate soldier characters on those that served in the American West during this time. According to author Jeremy Agnew in his book The Old West in Fact and Film, during the period of our focus, 1865 to 90, the U.S. Army's presence in the American West remained rather small, consisting of around 10,000 soldiers scattered among 65 poorly manned forts spread across 2.5 million square miles of territory, equivalent to each fort being responsible for an area the size of Kentucky. Within this domain, soldiers were given the monumental task of policing against rustlers, bandits, and thieves, and also protecting settlers, miners, ranchers, surveyors, and railroad crews from an estimated 300,000 natives, of which nearly 100,000 were deemed hostile by state or federal governments. Now, for those interested in better understanding the complexities of how such hostilities unfolded in the West between whites and natives, and the forms they took, subjects well beyond the scope of this video, I highly recommend S.C. Gwynn's Empire of the Summer Moon and Nathaniel Philbrick's The Last Stand, both of which are my personal favorites on the subject. We tend to think of a fort as a fortified structure for military defense. On the western frontier, the term applied to any place that provided a base of operations for the army, whether it had fortifications or not. Contrary to popular belief, most western forts were wide open, with no walls or fortifications surrounding them, the exceptions being Fort Reno, Fort Phil Kearny, and Fort C.F. Smith, which were under such constant threat from natives that they had to construct stockades, a defensive barrier of logs driven vertically into the ground. Regardless, the function of all forts was the same, that is, according to the Old West Fact and Film, to quote, house soldiers, guard transportation routes, wagon trails, and railroads, and to keep watch over the natives. Following the Civil War, soldiers stationed at these western forts were volunteers, with the enlisted men being mostly comprised of young foreign immigrants, the most common being Irish, German, and English. While white soldiers accounted for the majority, according to the book Black Valor, Buffalo Soldiers in the Medal of Honor, 1870 to 1898, around 10% of infantry and 20% of cavalry at this time were African Americans, famously dubbed Buffalo Soldiers by the natives. All soldiers enlisted in the Army for a period of 5 years, with an annual salary of just $156. To put this into perspective, I tracked down a study which lists the average annual salaries for 100 of the most common occupations in the United States during this period. Suffice it to say, newly enlisted soldiers weren't paid well. They made about 13% of a teacher's salary, 20% of a farmer, and half that of a common laborer. In fact, the only occupation being paid less were servants. Yet, it's important to keep in mind that this job provided room and board, not to mention a steady paycheck, so while the pay appears dismally low, it's not as bad as it seems. Plus, it provided an opportunity to see the country and even offered some adventure. Of course, in reality, life at the fort wasn't terribly adventurous. Jeremy Agnew writes that, quote, most of the soldiers' time was spent marching, drilling, and standing guard duty. Other time-consuming tasks included constant fatigue details, non-military tasks of manual labor, such as logging and quarrying. At the more peaceful forts, most of the enlisted men's hours were spent in post-maintenance, doing the jobs of common laborers, such as constructing buildings, digging ditches, and chopping firewood. In short, soldiers spent most of their time doing boring, repetitious, hard work for low pay. It's little wonder, therefore, that many soldiers deserted. In Life of a Soldier on the Western Frontier, the author states that between 1865 and 1890, across all forts in the West, approximately 1/3 of enlisted men deserted. Some units were even higher. In perusing the National Archives records of Fort Hays, Kansas, a typical fort on the Western Frontier, the post lost 457 of 865 enlisted men to desertion in a single year. That's a whopping rate of 53%. And that's not unheard of. According to Fort Hays, keeping peace on the plains, half of the 7th Cavalry had even deserted during Custer's time as commander. Most deserters weren't captured. Some were and faced punishment. Others never succeeded in their dash for freedom, their remains found years later. Such was the case according to an 1899 article from Nevada's Morning Appeal, where a lumberjack, quote, found a human skull. Near the skull was found a soldier's button and a piece of small blue cloth, all thought to belong to a deserter from nearby Fort Halleck. Similarly, an 1877 article from Montana's Rocky Mountain husbandman tells of a soldier named Howard found frozen dead to a mountaintop after deserting from Camp Baker 2 months prior. Perhaps the most disturbing report comes from an 1883 article in Montana's River Press, which reported that a couple men found the remains of a soldier that had deserted from his post at Fort McGinnis, with, quote, his hands and face gnawed off by the wolves. Suffice it to say, while there are plenty of risks involved with desertion, jail fines, hard labor, wolves eating your face off, etc., they weren't enough to deter the practice. Many soldiers that stayed on turned to alcohol to alleviate their boredom and frustration. At that time, drinking was an accepted practice in the Army, particularly in the isolated western posts, where both officers and enlisted men might be found drunk on duty. Looking again at Fort Hays, Kansas, one gets a sense that alcoholism was rampant. In January of 1869, 10 members of the fort's regimental band were put on trial for sneaking out of the fort and getting hammered in a nearby town. 2 months later, the fort's musician, Nicholas Reed, was put on trial after failing to deliver a scheduled musical performance for the post's adjutant's office because, and I quote, he was too drunk to play his instrument. Officially, the records show that annually around 5% of soldiers were treated by fort doctors for delirium tremens, that is, tremors brought on by severe alcohol withdrawals. The data on actual alcoholism rates are unavailable, however, likely because few considered alcoholism an illness, and it was only treated in the most extreme forms. Another misconception from Hollywood films is that Western forts were only manned by cavalry, when in reality they were garrisoned by both cavalry and infantry, each with specified roles. Being a mounted force, the cavalry's main job was to search for, pursue, and subdue hostile natives. They were also charged with patrolling their local region, tracking down outlaws and rustlers, and escorting wagon trains and stagecoaches. These operations usually took place between April and October, while the winter months were commonly spent at the fort. Infantry, because they weren't mounted, were not very effective against highly mobile native cavalry. As such, they supported the cavalry by guarding the fort and tending to the day-to-day duties to keep it operational, well-maintained, and supplied. At most forts, soldiers saw very little action or Indian fighting. This is illustrated well in the Fort Hays records, where between 1867 and 1884, the post surgeon's office reported just one arrow wound in nearly 2 decades. Historically, natives rarely attacked a fort directly, especially those with defensive fortifications, preferring instead to lure the enemy out and ambush them. Even in open terrain, natives tended to avoid fixed engagements, usually only fought when they had the advantage, or to cover the withdrawal of their tribe when caught by surprise. The vast majority of native skirmishes involved brief hit-and-run style raids followed by rapid retreats into desolate country. Such tactics kept casualties at a minimum, for while the army could easily recruit more soldiers to replace those lost in battle, natives required a generation to pass in order to replace their losses, hence their more indirect, careful approach. These guerrilla tactics were particularly frustrating for soldiers trained in traditional European-style warfare, that is, firing lines, pitched battles, the sieging of fortifications, and so forth. Unsurprisingly, years were to pass before the army began to properly understand native tactics and took steps to successfully adapt to them. As for weapons, immediately following the Civil War, most Western soldiers used the 7-round Spencer Model 1860 rifle or carbine. In Red Dead Online, this would be the carbine repeater. For a sidearm, most soldiers were issued a Remington New Model Army or Colt Model 1860 44 caliber percussion capped revolver. While there is no equivalent for the Remington in Red Dead Online, the Colt Model 1860 is very similar looking to the 1851 Colt Navy revolver. In time, the Army switched to Springfield Model 1866s, and in 1873, cavalry firearms were standardized with the adoption of the Model 1873 trapdoor Springfield rifle, and the Colt Single-Action Army Model 1873 revolver. In Red Dead Online, the trapdoor is a Springfield rifle, and the Colt Single-Action Army revolver is the Cattleman revolver. For those of you looking for maximum historical accuracy, these revolvers were issued in a blued finish, walnut grips, and had a barrel of 7.5 inches, meaning in Red Dead Online you'll want to maintain the standard barrel length instead of opting for the longer upgrade. Before moving on from weapons, it's important to note that both enlisted men and officers were allowed to purchase their own alternative firearms. Glancing at the famed 7th Cavalry, we know that Custer carried a Remington 50 caliber sporting rifle with an octagonal barrel and 2 non-standard white-handled revolvers. Captain Thomas French carried a 50 caliber Springfield that his men called Long Tom. Sergeant John Ryan used a custom-made 45 caliber 15-pound Sharps telescopic rifle. Private Henry Bailey carried a breech-loading single-barrel shotgun. So while there were certainly standard-issue weapons, there was still some room for individual preferences, if approved by the commanding officer. Now, without further ado, what you've all been waiting for, the clothing. While Army uniforms during the Indian Wars period underwent slight modifications over the years, the basics remained the same. Up top, the standard enlisted man would have worn a gray or dark blue flannel shirt. In Red Dead Online, I recommend the gray collar overshirt, the Navy frontier shirt, or the Navy work shirt. Suspenders were not issued by the government, but rather purchased privately by individual soldiers. Still, they are quite popular. If you choose to go with them in Red Dead Online, and want to remain as historically accurate as possible, pick up a pair in white and single-backed instead of crossed. I recommend the white Crutchfield suspenders or the off-white cotton suspenders. Over the overshirt, soldiers would have traditionally worn a navy blue jacket, then called a blouse. Unfortunately, at the time of filming this video, there is no equivalent coat in Red Dead Online. The military jacket is close but far too short, isn't available in Navy, and cannot be closed. Instead, I came up with a solid alternative, the black wool shirt, which, while still not long enough, looks remarkably close to what we want. Now, it's important to keep in mind that historically, when in the field, soldiers tended to dress more casually, especially in warmer temperatures, which is why we often see photos of them on patrol wearing their flannel shirts instead of their blouses. As such, you can still maintain historical accuracy by scrapping the blouse and sticking with your gray or navy shirts, as both were commonly worn on their own, especially when paired with suspenders. When it comes to trousers, these were usually light blue and trimmed in yellow to denote the cavalry, and light blue or white for the infantry. While Red Dead Online lacks proper yellow striped cavalry pants, I recommend the solid light blue clerk pants for any type of soldier you're creating. It's also worth mentioning that some cavalry troopers paid the garrison tailor to add a layer of canvas to the seat of their pants, thereby extending the life of their trousers. This is replicated in Red Dead Online with the Holman and Might Hill pants. Unfortunately, however, both come in bright blue rather than light blue, so it's a bit of a stretch to pull them off. For footwear, I reached out to Ken Woody, the Chief of Interpretation at the Little Bighorn Battlefield National Monument. He informed me that soldiers were issued both black leather boots and shoes. The tall boots were worn almost exclusively by cavalry troopers while out on campaign, and the shoes, which are actually low-cut boots called Jefferson shoes, were worn by both the cavalry and infantry while at the fort. In Red Dead Online, I recommend the black cavalry boots for mounted cavalry troopers on campaign, and the shorter millwright boots for both cavalry and infantry when not campaigning. To determine whether the tall cavalry boots were worn over or under pant legs, I spoke with Temple University's Professor of Military History, Dr. Gregory Irwin, author of the United States Cavalry, An Illustrated History, 1776 to 1944. He informed me that pants were usually worn over boots. That said, he cautioned that it really just came down to the commanding officer, who ultimately decided the level of freedom he'd give his soldiers when it came to attire, hence why we see such variety in historical photos. When the infantry was put into action, most continued to wear their Jefferson shoes, but combined them with white, tan, or brown canvas gaiters, also called half-chaps. These exist in Red Dead Online called military half-chaps, but strangely, you can only equip them while wearing taller boots, which is a little funny considering you don't actually need them if you're already wearing tall boots, but I digress. Moving on to belts, things get a little bit tricky. Historically, soldiers only wore a single cartridge belt and holster high on the hips. For those of you lucky enough to have snagged the frontiersman outfit from an earlier Outlaw Pass, you can utilize the frontiersman belt, which is pretty accurate, though they were more often found historically in off-white rather than black. The problem with taking this route, however, is twofold. One, there is no holster on this belt, and two, you now have two belts, which isn't historically accurate. As such, I personally prefer to pass on the frontiersman belt and go with the black or dark brown gun belt with a rectangular gold buckle, even though it's slung far too low. For hats, soldiers were issued the standard dark blue Civil War kepi, and later, in 1873, a black felt wide-brimmed Stetson-style hat, which better protected soldiers from the sun and rain while campaigning in the field. In 1885, a drab tan-colored version was issued as well. In Red Dead Online, the kepi is the Navy Union cap. As for the wide-brimmed campaign hat, I personally recommend the Cayuga hat, military scout hat, stalker hat, or denim hat, even over the cavalry-inspired regimental hat, which is problematic with its folded brim and feather. Like suspenders, soldiers could purchase their own hats as well, and several did. According to Professor Irwin, on the Little Bighorn campaign, both Custer and his brother Tom stopped to purchase off-white felt hats from either Fort Abraham Lincoln or the steamer Far West. Others under his command also purchased off-white felt hats and even straw hats, which were both significantly cooler on the high plains in the scorching summer than the standard issue black one at the time. Necro Chips were also popular accessories worn by soldiers stationed in the West. While they had no shortage of uses, it's important to note that they were never actually issued to the soldiers during this period. Instead, soldiers would purchase their own in the most popular colors of the period, usually blue, black, red, or white. For those of you envisioning the cavalry in countless films all wearing yellow Necro Chips, just be aware that this was a Hollywood creation, thought to make the cavalry more colorful on screen. Historically, didn't happen. Like Necro Chips, leather gloves, a standard in Western films, were not issued to soldiers on the frontier. Rather, they were privately purchased if the soldier wanted them. As for winter clothing, the Army issued a variety of coats at different times, the most iconic being the greatcoat, and while the bison lasted, the buffalo coat. Early in the Indian Wars era, these greatcoats were light blue, but beginning in 1885, the Army switched to a darker shade, closer to royal blue. In Red Dead Online, the blue Dunaway coat is a solid reflection of this later design and color. As for the buffalo coat, the tan or brown marebay coat looks remarkably similar, even though in Red Dead Online it's made from a bear. Another option is the Hartman jacket, which resembles the Army's winter patrol jacket. All that said, many soldiers just made do with their standard wool blouse, some swapping their kepi or campaign hat for a government-issued muskrat fur hat. Suffice it to say, each man took appropriate steps to keep himself comfortable. Alright, to put all this together, let's take a look at some outfits. Outfit number 1 is a standard Indian Wars era soldier. Infantry or cavalry, it doesn't make any difference yet. To create him, you'll want the black millwright boots, the light blue clerk pants, the black wool shirt, and the navy kepi hat. Outfit number 2 is a good representation of what a soldier would have worn around the fort while on fatigue duty, or during their downtime. All I did here was swap out the black wool shirt with the gray collared overshirt and added the Crutchfield suspenders. An easy variation on this one is to replace the collared overshirt with the navy work shirt, and instead of the Crutchfield suspenders, I went with the off-white cotton suspenders. Outfit number 3 is a campaigning infantryman. Notice now we're differentiating between infantry and cavalry here. To make them, swap out your millwright boots with the cavalry boots, so you can add the military half chaps. From here, I changed his shirt to a navy frontier shirt, opened the collar, but kept the Crutchfield suspenders. I also changed his hat to a tan military scout hat. Outfit number 4 is a standard campaigning cavalryman. For this outfit, I chose the black cavalry boots, worn over the pants, with the brown Gurdon spurs. Up top, go with the black wool shirt, and choose the black or brown Cayuga or military scout hat. Outfit number 5 is more of a hard-riding campaigning cavalryman. Up top, I stripped down to the navy work shirt, added off-white cotton suspenders, black neckerchief, and the tan stalker hat. Outfit number 6 is a more relaxed campaigning cavalryman. I went with the gray collared overshirt, rolled the sleeves, added a faded red neckerchief, and a tan military scout hat. From here, just play around with these combinations until you find a look that you enjoy. So long as you stick with these components, your character will remain historically accurate. Have fun out there, folks. Keep looking historically accurate, and I'll see you out on the trail. Thank you, folks, for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure that you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Also, if you want to further support my work, you can do so on Patreon, or you can buy some gear for the Modern Frontier from the Man vs. History Outfitter shop. Thanks again for watching. You folks have a wonderful night. We'll see you next time.
What was that?
Also, if you want to further support my work, you can do so on Patreon, where you get access to our, what is that called? On the Man vs. History Outfitter shop. Also, if you... How you doing?
Oh, Lord.
I can't tell if this is in focus. Are you in focus?
Oh, God.
Alright, before I go, just want to make sure that I think...
That's the kind of stuff that I am here for. That's the kind of stuff that I enjoy. It's the little mistakes that it's the little mistakes that I enjoy, the little things that make the video funny, that the things that make the video good. Guys, the lower your intelligence, the better likely the video will be. I know that because all my videos are great and I know how low my intelligence is. There's no hope for me, guys. So I hope you guys, oh wait, wrong filter. So I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Please like and subscribe. It lets me know that you enjoyed the video. And I've got nothing else to say. Please check out Man vs. History's video, and let's try and not get this video copyrighted, because it does nothing to me anyway. Yeah, it does nothing to me anyway, pretty much, for right now anyway. Yeah, even if this video does get copyrighted, it's not like it does me any harm right now anyways. Once I get monetized, I'm sure it's gonna be hell, but yeah. How you doing?